Good. Hey, thanks for everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're here from the DoubleTree Hotel in Reading, Pennsylvania, bringing you our weekly podcast that starts as of today. We have a we have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of boxing events to talk about, and of course, this is something that we're going to do on a weekly basis, just to talk about boxing for the most part, but sports in general. Whatever your questions may be, if you have any concerns or if something crazy happens in the world of boxing or even in the world of football or whatever else it may be, hey, we're here to talk about it.
Politics.
No politics. Stay away from
I
politics.
thought you were on a roll there for a second.
But we're happy to be here at the DoubleTree Hotel. I have Andrew Foy here to the left of me. It looks like as though he's to the right of me on the screen. But Andrew Foy here to the left of me. And we want to thank Craig Poole for allowing us to be here at this beautiful hotel downtown. If you've never been here to the DoubleTree Hotel, make it a point to get here. Great food, drinks, atmosphere. We have about 300 people in the lobby right now. We thought they came to see us, but evidently they're here for something else. But we want to start talking about the fight that just passed. Andrew, what did you think about the fight this past weekend?
Well, the first thing I thought was you looked real good on television, and I was jealous that I wasn't there with you. But then I realized that you were in Deontay Wilder's seat and didn't see you for the last couple fights. But I don't know. I mean, I thought that Spence was going to win a lopsided decision, and I was really impressed. It was a great fight. Porter, I was just extremely impressed with Porter. I was, it's one of those things where I said Spence was going to win, and I can feel vindicated as far as that goes, but I was totally wrong in terms of how I thought the fight was going to play out. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great fight. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. Normally, I'm not huge on seeing rematches, but I really thought that was an excellent fight. And, I mean, honestly, without the knockdown, I think even with the knockdown, I think a case could be made for Porter, depending on what kind of work you like. But I did think Spence won, but great fight. What did you think?
No, excellent fight. Of course, I was fortunate to be right there ringside within, 6 foot of the ring, and so I was able to see things that were just punches that they might not even see on TV. But Spence fought a great fight, and Porter fought even a better fight. Just that the stronger man, the one who had more determination and who was stronger physically and punching wise, ended up pulling it out. They both were determined. I think it was an ugly fight, but a good fight. If it makes any sense, I've never seen an ugly fight before that turned into be a good fight. Because Porter does that, and Porter is just what Spence said he is, which is a in-shape street fighter. But that in-shape street fighter gave Spence trouble.
Yeah. I mean, and he was landing with a lot of effective shots too, which is what impressed me. I mean, I didn't really think he would in the past. It seems like Porter, tends to smother a lot of his work. But I was actually impressed with the shots that he was landing, and be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, before this fight, I really thought Spence was a generational type talent, and I wonder, am I not giving Porter enough credit? Because I mean, he certainly made him look very beatable, and obviously Sean Porter is great. You don't get to that level of the sport without being great, but there's we say there's levels to this, but there's even levels to greatness. And I really thought Spence was a generational talent. I'm not so sure after this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think Spence is Spence is on another level from other fighters without a doubt. But I think at the same time, Porter exposed him. And exposed him to the sense of, I think Spence struggles with movement. quick movement like that, you know. But look, let's be honest. Who hasn't Porter given trouble to? I mean,
Yeah.
there's every fight
Yeah.
that Porter's been in, the only losses he has on his resume are Keith Thurman. Who else is it that he lost to?
Kell Brook.
Kell Brook, you know, and that's it. And then he beat Broner, but that was that was early in the career, and so no, Porter's special, man. He really
Yeah.
is, you know. And so by him being special, what does that make Spence? A little bit more special, you know.
Yeah.
I really would love to see Spence and Crawford, but I just don't know whether that's going to happen because of the powers that be.
Right.
There's, I mean, it can happen. They put Wilder and Fury together, so it can happen. It's just a matter of when.
All right. Well, that was before Fury was with Top Rank, though.
No, they put it together after the fact. Yeah,
Really?
I'm telling you, yeah. They put it together afterwards. And reason being, because Fury said he wants to fight Wilder. And Wilder said, I want to fight Fury. So they made it happen. You know, the first time they fought was before Top Rank, of course. But the rematch they're doing is
sure.
with Top Rank
Okay.
and Al Heyman.
Sure.
You know, so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Spence does moving forward. You know, who's next? Who's really out there? I mean, they talked about Danny Garcia, and I think that could be interesting. Sitting ringside, it looked as though Porter stunned Spence a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was stunned him because of a punch or if it was more so like, wow, I was shocked because he hit me from out here, you know, and he jumped in or rushed in. And like Danny said in the post-fight interview, he punches a whole lot harder than Porter does. So that could be interesting, you know. I just don't know if Danny can keep up with Spence's output and Spence's body attack.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point and we've talked about this before. Styles make fights, and who hasn't Porter given a tough time to? And I think that Porter definitely, this was really the best Sean Porter that I've seen. So even with all that being said about Porter giving fighters a tough time, his style is a tough style to match up with. This was the best I've seen him. When I think of a Danny Garcia fight with Spence, I think it would be more like the Mikey Garcia fight with Spence was, which is Danny is a much more stationary fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a counter puncher, but you know he's not a pressure fighter. And I think that was what gave Spence the issues was the pressure fighting. And
Right.
I can't really think of anybody in those weight divisions that's as good of a pressure fighter as Porter. And again, I mean, this was the best Sean Porter that I've ever seen.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, when I saw Porter fight Thurman, it was very interesting and very close fight all the way down to the wire where it could have went either way. And that's how this fight was, just the same. It was down to the wire until that knockdown. And that knockdown, after the 10th round, I said to the guys I was sitting with, Spence needs these last 2 rounds. You know, and not only did he win the last 2 rounds, he dominated that 11th round with the knockdown. You know, so you have to give it up for Spence. I mean, he's a young man yet, and he's making his mark in boxing, and he's not afraid to step in the ring with anybody. You know, I'm really excited to see what happens with him and Garcia.
Another fight I wanted to mention on the card, well, a couple fights just because they stand out. You know, David Benavidez, I've been extremely impressed with him. There was nothing not to be impressed with him as far as that last fight goes. I mean, is there anybody at 68 that you see beating Benavidez right now?
You know, Caleb Plant, I think, will give him some trouble. Caleb Plant is a very slick boxer. He's doesn't get hit much, and he has a real nice left hook. Not a huge puncher, okay? So I'm not sure if he would be able to keep up with the pressure. He kept up with the pressure against, what was the guy's name? Yusateki. Kept up with the pressure with him and dropped him 2 or 3 times in the fight. You know, but I still like Benavidez in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Benavidez is on a different level than Yusateki, but you know, he's definitely somebody that, you know, I think he can do special things at super middleweight, but also at light heavyweight if he moves up in the future. And then one other thing, I wanted to mention was the Barrios Akhmedov fight. A lot of people thought that was a bad decision. Although, I could see the fight going to Barrios just because he jumped out to such a big lead in the opening rounds and then he closed
Correct.
with that knockdown. So I didn't really think it was terribly controversial. And as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, of our own fighter, Mike Fox, because this was for the WBA title. And,
Correct.
Obviously I think Mike is a couple fights away from fighting for a world title, but watching that fight, I don't see a whole lot of distance between Mike and either of those two guys, to be honest.
I see Mike beating him hands down. I really do. And I'm biased, of course, but I see Mike beating Barrios hands down. I just don't think Barrios would ever fight Mike Fox because of his range, his great defense, and being 6'4".
Yeah. Well, Barrios is obviously tall for that weight as well, but yeah, nothing like.
No, Barrios is
Mike.
about 5'11" and a half, 6 foot.
Right.
He's tall as well. I just don't think I don't think he can contend with Fox. But there's that whole card. I remember years ago as a kid when I became a boxing fan. That whole card. I used to watch Don King shows, Top Rank shows, and I would watch the card, and the undercard would be trash, garbage. From the beginning up until the main event. Then all of a sudden you have the main event, you're all hyped up for it, and the main event was great. But a lot of the undercards weren't nearly as good. Saturday night's fight in LA from Jose Cito Lopez to the main event were all great fights. Lopez and Molina was a great fight. Two guys that I think are over the hill in a sense and sort of washed up, made for a great fight. That's great matchmaking as well.
Yeah. Oh, and Molina has retired since then. He announced that. I saw either today or yesterday, but yeah, I mean that was a fantastic fight.
It really was.
So moving on to some of our own events coming up, October, is a big month for King's Promotions. We can talk about, and if anybody is actually, writing in with, I see a lot of people responding with questions or just with comments. But if you have questions, definitely shoot them to us, and we'll take them on. So October 25th, Friday, October 25th. King's Promotions is doing a show at the 2300 Arena. Main event for that is 8-round fight between Brandon Robinson and Martez McGregor. What do you think?
Very good fight. Two punchers. Don't know whether they can take a punch or not. We saw Brandon Robinson get stopped against Calvin Henderson. We saw him get hurt against Devon Lee. And then, question marks are out there about him. Then, you have Martez McGregor, who's 8-2 with 6 knockouts, but's been stopped twice against tough opposition as well, of course. So I think it makes for one of those type of fights that you can say whoever lands the first punch is going to win the fight.
Sure.
Whoever lands the biggest punch wins the fight because both guys have been stopped already in the past. Brandon is 13-2. He's been stopped twice. He's got 10 knockouts. And then Martez McGregor's 8-2. He's been stopped twice, and he's got 6 knockouts. So somebody's getting stopped. I can almost guarantee you that.
The one thing I would say in defense of Brandon, and I'm sure you would probably agree with this, is, Brandon's the stop against Calvin Henderson really wasn't, he didn't get knocked out or counted out. The fight was stopped. He fractured his orbit, and it did seem to me like the shots that he was getting hurt by during that fight, even as I was watching it, I was thinking this. It didn't seem to me so much like they were concussive type shots. It was just, it seemed like his eye was really bothering him. And that's not an excuse. Calvin Henderson fought a great fight and, in my opinion, was clearly winning the fight, although the judges had it differently at the time of the stoppage. But so, time will tell, I guess. But
from a fan's point of view, when you look at two guys that both guys can punch, and both guys have been stopped in their 2 losses, you wonder, somebody's getting sacked. So don't blink your eyes in this fight, because I think it has the making of a beautiful knockout taking place, I know Brandon's in camp with Teddy Atlas's light heavyweight. I forget what his name is, but the world champ.
Bostic.
And so he's in camp with him, and so he's in great shape and he's ready for this fight. And Martez McGregor's coming from Chicago, and supposedly he's coming to get a win. So we'll see what happens in that fight.
Yep. And then the co-main, Naeem Nelson's going to be making his first fight back in a couple years. I guess he's been dealing with some injuries.
Correct.
Fighting Roy McGill, which is, this is very much a crossroads fight for local fighters. I think Naeem would definitely be favored, but Roy always has a puncher's chance.
Correct.
He's been the underdog before and come out on top. So,
well, I'll tell you what, Roy's definitely the bigger puncher. Naeem is what is Naeem's record? He's got like one KO.
13-4.
13-4 with 1 KO, and Roy is 6-3 with 3 KOs. So Roy is definitely the bigger puncher. Naeem's fought the tougher opposition, but Naeem's been off for 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's the main question.
Came off a shoulder injury, and so we'll see what he has left. And this is a perfect opportunity for Roy McGill to take advantage of that. And not to sleep on that. Roy McGill, we know he's coming off with 2 losses in a row. But both times he fought some decent punchers. Here he's not fighting a puncher, so I think it makes for a good fight, and hopefully it gives Roy that confidence he needs to get through the fight and put on a great show.
Yeah. And then the fight I think that we're very interested in, Averill Mathie. So it's going to be fighting 4 rounds against Karen Doolan, who is a tough veteran. I don't let her record fool you. She always comes to fight. Averill is probably the most famous fighter that we've ever put on a show in Philadelphia.
But I don't think that's because of her boxing ability.
I would agree. and just to put it out there, there's probably not many times where you're going to get the chance to see an international swimsuit model on a professional boxing card. And but that being said, I was able to find some footage of her last couple fights, and she looks gritty in the ring.
Yeah.
It's not like she's had an easy time of it. So, but it presents an interesting question, because if you follow her on social media, which I only started doing recently when we got involved with potentially having her on one of our shows.
She's really a swimsuit model.
Yeah, this is a girl who lives a supermodel life on the coast of Greece, and I just think about like the Marvin Hagler quote. It's tough to wake up and run 5 miles when you sleep in silk pajamas, and but at the same time, I wonder. I'm almost kind of seeing this new market emerge for kind of like these fitness professionals who are kind of moonlighting in the boxing world, and it seems like fitness is a huge part of her life. She's in tremendous physical condition. Is that enough to translate into somebody who has the chops to make it in boxing? There's not as many female boxers as male boxers. A lot of times we see females getting world title shots at maybe 6, 7, 10 fights. And is this somebody that could do that? She certainly seems tough. Like I said, in the footage that I've seen, I'm extremely, interested to see this fight.
Me too, and I plan on being there for that. She is. I've seen footage of her as well, and she looks, as though she has a very good jab. She has good fundamentals, and of course she can get better without a doubt, being 3-0 with 2 knockouts, I believe. But she's going up against a tough veteran,
right?
And Karen Doolan, like you said, she's been in there with some very quality fighters,
right?
And have given them trouble. So I'm really excited to see what Averill does, Averill in the fight, and I'm excited the fact that I've seen one of her posts on Instagram. Someone said, "Hey, you're going to love Philadelphia." So I'm glad that this girl from Australia, who's now living in Greece, trains in Florida, coming to Philadelphia.
I don't, based on the posts that I've seen, it could be a rude awakening, waking up on and it seems like she lives off the coast of some island or whatnot, waking up on the coast of the
Yeah,
Schuylkill
right.
or the Delaware River. But yeah, extremely interesting. And then, the rest of the card we got, a lot of local interesting fights. So
James Martin, who's coming off of his first loss against Kayshawn Hutchinson, who's hot as a Mexican hot sauce. He is on fire. I mean, he's coming off of had a win before that. He beats James Martin, and then he beats Rashid Johnson in a rematch. So the fact that James Martin lost his first fight, we have to see what he's made of, and even though we're giving him a guy that has an upside-down record in Juan Rodriguez, Juan's upset-minded. He upset a kid that was 9-1 or 8-1.
Yeah,
and
Maynard Allison. Yeah, the last time I saw him fight, he's knocked out Maynard Allison. Yeah. So, and Maynard was a tough.
And he's taking fights on short notices, like 3 days, 4 days. Just trying to put food on his table.
Right.
Where this year he's had 6 weeks to prepare for it. So I think we're going to see the best Juan Rodriguez. And I really do believe we're going to see the best James Martin as well. Because when I first seen James Martin in Philadelphia at the Sugar House Casino, I was extremely impressed. Like, this kid's got the goods. And then when I seen him fight Kayshawn, and I don't know if it was, credit to Kayshawn for just putting up a great fight, but I didn't see the same James Martin again. So I'm anxious to see how this fight plays out.
I would agree. I mean, I saw that fight as well at the Sugar House, and his opponent for that fight, Ryan Burrs, or Jonathan.
Jonathan Burrs, Ryan.
I mean, he's actually a very good fighter. I mean, I think he's won 3 fights since that fight.
Yep. And he had a big amateur background as well.
And I thought James totally dominated that fight, and that's not the kind of fight you typically see. I mean, 2 pro debuts who actually, have significant amateur backgrounds fighting each other. And it seemed to me that James was certainly a level above. And I haven't seen that. And sometimes it's the matchups. I mean, he fought Rick Pyle not that long ago. Rick didn't engage that much during the fight. It was a fight that somebody might have a hard time looking good in. And then you wonder, maybe it's just with Kayshawn's style. I mean, you talk about Sean Porter, he's a pressure fighter. He makes it look ugly, and nobody really looks good against him. Maybe it was just kind of a matter of that with
you could be right with Kayshawn. You're right. You could be right.
Because we saw what happened last fight. That's
right. You're 100%.
But
correct.
That being said, if James is going to, do big things in the sport, he does need, he needs to be able to beat fighters like Kayshawn.
Right.
Then the next,
Nicoy Clark against Angel Rivera.
Yep.
Angel Rivera looked as though he had a promising career. 4-0. Had a great win against another kid who was like 5-1 or something from North Carolina. And was really looking good. And we brought him into Philly, and he got clipped. He got caught. I think it was one of those type of circumstances where he was exchanging with the left hooker, and he just got caught first. And it was just one of those things. So the question mark is really still out on Angel to see what he's capable of. We have him in there with a tough, durable Nicoy Clark, who always comes to fight and loves to fight. He's a school teacher on top of that.
Right.
So I'm excited about that fight.
I see this fight and the matchup being similar to Angel's fight with Austin Bryant, which, I've said for me was one of the fights of the year of 2018. So if this fight, is what I'm thinking it could be, this is a fight that you absolutely don't want to miss. And then a couple other guys who were hoping to be on the card were working on matching them up at the time. Rasheed Brown.
Don't have a matchup as of now. Very good amateur background. Won the Golden Gloves as a like 19 years old, I believe he was at the time, and so he has very good boxing ability. Still doesn't have his man strength yet, so you don't see the punching power there yet. But we're trying to find him a very competitive fight so we can really see all of his skills come out. Uh, he's one of those type of kids that I believe that he needs a tougher challenge to allow people to see what he's capable of doing. And then we have, of course, uh, Damon Allen on the card as well. Damon Allen coming off of his first loss, he was promoted by Golden Boy. Golden Boy released him after his loss, and now he's fighting on our card. He signed with David McWhorter, and so Damon's going up against what the heck is this kid's name here? Bergman Aguilar. And so I'm anxious to see what Damon does. First time coming back after quite some time. So we'll see. Damon's got the skills, though.
Yeah, I mean, Damon was somebody that was kind of marked for being a world champion. So,
Correct.
and you know, it's one loss. I mean, to see where things go from here.
Right. Sometimes guys get so much better from that one loss.
Sure.
You know.
And then finally, we got Ryan Umberger.
Ryan Umberger. Who's that? Ryan Umberger is a big ticket seller.
And he comes to fight.
And he
He's
does
one of
come
my
to
favorite
fight, yeah.
fighters.
The fight with Ryan Umberger and Brent Oren to this day is one of my favorite fights of all time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it really was. It was Rock'em Sock'em Robot. I mean, back and forth, and Brent took that fight on like 5-day notice or something, you know. But and Brent just got tired. He gassed out, you know. But what a fight, you know. And then Ryan came back in his next fight and stopped the kid in the first round. Yeah, so I think Ryan's improving, but we want to see more of him. So he'll be going up against a kid by the name of Leon DeShields. So I'm anxious to see from Camden, New Jersey. So I want to see how that plays out with Ryan, because DeShields he went the distance with Ryan's stablemate Brandon Mullins. So and Brandon Mullins is a much bigger fighter on top of that. So,
yeah, and DeShields is coming down in weight.
Correct.
So,
correct. So we'll see what happens. Before we get into the fight that we want to talk about, that's right here on Penn Street, the very next day, October 26th. So King's Promotions has a show October 25th in Philadelphia. The very next day, we have a Showtime show October 26th right here in Reading, Pennsylvania, right directly across the street from the Doubletree Hotel. If you don't have your tickets yet, make sure you get them because they are moving fast. And we have one heck of a card. But I've had a few questions. I want to answer them quick as people were messaging me. They want to know when Kermit Cintron's fighting again. Kermit Cintron's making a return. Kermit's going to be 40 years old, still in phenomenal condition, one heck of an athlete, and he's making a return November 23rd in Reading, Pennsylvania, on a card where I first started doing my boxing at the River Edge Restaurant Hotel. My son Travis started his own boxing promotional company, so we're teaming up to do a card. I'm helping Travis out, and Kermit Cintron will be fighting on that card against a tough, durable opponent in Josue Obando, who's going to make Kermit fight at 168, and so I'm really looking forward to that. So that is when Kermit will be fighting again, for those of you who are asking Harry Yorgi, just so you know. So Harry Yorgi, don't try to come back at 168. Get your butt back down to 154 if you want to fight again, What else do we have? We have, we got our buddy Dino Acarino watching. Dino's got Dino's Wings and Things. If you ever need some good wings, Dino's the place to go. He also has a new pizza shop as well, and Dino's is right on Fifth Street Highway. Make sure you check Dino's out. Matter of fact, you guys should check Dino out on your way home. Dino, you got my guys doing the videographer. They're going to stop by and get something to eat. So we're good. And then then we got the October 26th. What can you tell me about October 26th?
I mean, it looks like a heck of a lineup. I mean, just starting from the top. And I didn't even notice this till I was looking at it today. So actually, all of the fighters in the three main fights have some connection to Ohio. And what I can say is the last time I was at a show at Santander. It involved Robert Easter when he won the world title against Richard Comey, and it was a totally wild, surreal experience that you don't get at boxing events that often. And I mean, I don't know if it was just Robert Easter for that event and his fans travel, but this is stacked with Ohio people. So if they come out to this event like they came out for the last one at the Santander,
It was.
I mean, it's really, it's
It
going
was,
to be a
and you know
night.
what's it's funny because as I texted you last night
Yeah.
saying turn on FS1, the fight was on FS1 last night, and it was just to bring back the memories of how wild the crowd was and just how excited they were, and it got down, and the fight itself was great. You know, he dropped Comey. I forget whether they ruled it a knockdown or not, but it went to the scorecards and they're standing there like they don't know who won, and everybody's so excited. The next thing you know, they announced Easter as the winner, and the crowd went nuts. I mean, you talk about showing love and support. They come out and they show Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah, it was
They come out and show
unbelievable.
love and support. So Toledo, Ohio is they'll be in the house come October 26th to see Robert Easter fight, and he's got a tough competitor against him in Adrian Granados. Granados has fought to a draw with a much younger Kermit Cintron. I just saw Granados on Saturday in LA, and Granados told me that Cintron is the hardest puncher he's ever fought. And Granados has been in there with some very tough individuals, including recently Danny Garcia, you know. And so I'm anxious, Granados is dropping back down from 47 to 40, and he's fighting Robert Easter, who's making his first fight at 140. So, you got a guy coming down in weight and you got a guy going up in weight. I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, be curious to see what you think about this. But and this is not to, this isn't to put down Robert Easter or anything. But I do think he's underachieved a little bit in the sport. I mean, this was a guy
After
who
the
was
Comey fight, yes.
absolutely who I think was kind of fast tracked for stardom, and things just didn't kind of go that way for him. But Comey is a great fighter who is still a world champion currently. And it just seemed like Robert Easter's career has kind of gone sideways a little bit. And so it'll be curious to see how he does in this fight, because Granados is the kind of guy that he will make a good fight with no matter who he fights. Robert Easter's last fight was against Francis Bartholomew, and it was not the most action-packed fight. I think most people would agree. But Bartholomew, that's his style. The fights with him are kind of ugly. A lot of people might say they're boring. I think this will be a lot better test to see where Easter's at coming off the loss to Mikey Garcia. And in all fairness to Easter, I think that Mikey Garcia is potentially like a generational great type talent. I still don't quite understand the plans with him in terms of moving up as much in
Why he
weight
took
as
the
he
fight
has.
against Spence too.
But that being said, I mean, I think Robert Easter is still somebody who people in the boxing world have big hopes for. So this, I think, would be a real interesting fight for him. And then the main event, I didn't even know this till I looked it up today, but Terrell Gashaw was actually born in Ohio. He doesn't live there.
Was he really?
Yeah, so I don't know if that was intentional or not. I'm sure maybe it was, but he's going to be fighting Erickson Lubin, and really, a crossroad fight for these two guys. I mean, Erickson Lubin, I feel like another guy who was kind of fast-tracked for stardom, took the loss to Charlo, and they've been kind of rehabbing him almost in the way that they did Julian Williams after J-Rock lost to the other Charlo. He's actually fought several of the same opponents. He's looking, tremendous. And is this going to be the coming out fight for him? But then Terrell Gashaw, great. Another guy who was fast-tracked for stardom, and he's kind of gone sideways his last couple fights, coming off a draw with Austin Trout. So,
Where most people thought he won.
Yeah, but it wasn't the impressive type of performance that I think you would want to. Austin Trout's been a great fighter, but his best days
Are
are
behind
him.
I agree.
It was a fight that I think Gashao should have really won, and even potentially Austin Trout doesn't get dominated, but it was a fight that he should have won more convincingly.
Mhm.
So how does he look now against Lubin? I think personally, I think Lubin. I'm going with Lubin for this fight, but one of these two guys, if not both, they will be world champions in the near future. And what a
Right.
main event for the card. In addition to, like we said, Easter and Granados, where we're looking at guys who
Mhm.
were world champs and
Plus,
probably will be
plus a
again.
great undercard, uh, which isn't totally completely matched up yet. But we have some great fighters on the card. One that we are very proud to announce that we uh, should have an official signing on tomorrow. Alicia Baumgardner. Uh, she will be a King's Promotions fighter, and we'll be featuring her on the show as well.
I'm almost afraid to speak on it.
Because you
I
wonder
don't want to
whether
jinx the
to
situation.
she's in, she's in. She is. We're very excited about her. I think the girl can really fight. On top of that, uh, she has a great following, and she sells tickets and she markets herself very well. Almost like not as good as April Matthew, but she's getting there.
Yeah, I
She's a much
said
better fighter than April, though.
I said with Alicia the first time I saw her, and I told you this. I said I don't think she could just be a star in boxing. Like I think she could be a crossover
Hmm.
female athletic star.
Correct.
And her boxing ability is tremendous. I mean, her one loss was a split decision loss to a great fighter. Um, she will be a world champion. I mean,
Hmm.
the question I think from my standpoint is, how dominant will she be, and how high can she really climb? But
Correct.
I think she could be a a female sports star.
Superstar. Yep. No, I agree. I agree. She has that appeal about her. You know what I mean? So uh, we'll see what happens. We'll move her, and like I said, she can fight too. She
Absolutely.
has good fundamentals. Then we have one of the fighters that I'm very excited about is Rais Salim. Rais Salim is 14-0 with 8 knockouts, and Rais is coming out of Las Vegas. Um, and he has been on a roll. Since I signed him, he's won 4 fights in a row, all by knockout, and so he's he's really on a roll right now, and I have high hopes for him.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep every name in boxing straight, but Rais's last fight in Philadelphia on our show, first round knockout against a fighter who went the distance with Jojo
That's
Diaz,
right.
not too many fights back. And
And,
I
and
can't
went
remember his name,
and went
but
5 rounds with uh, what's the kid's name? That's the hottest fighter in that division right now. Uh, can't think of his name. I want to say Lopez or can't think of his name, but the kid who's the hottest fighter in that division, okay, uh, who's #1 in that division, he went 5 rounds with him, and Rais just
dominated him.
dominated him. You
Yeah.
know, you know. And then we have a young kid from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Jonathan Torres, you know, who's really grown a lot in the past year. We've seen him in 6 fights already in 1 year, and we've seen him do very well with different opposition. And I think as he matures more as a young man, we're going to see even more out of him with punching power and things of that sort as well.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think he has great boxing fundamentals, great coach, great team around him. I think he has a bright future. Not much. And we've talked about him in the past. We've had him on here. Um, and then Brent Orrin on the card.
Brent Orrin again,
Brent
right?
Orrin again on the card. I just found this
Yeah,
out.
I love Brent Orrin, man. I love his attitude. I love uh, his energy level, and he comes to fight. And he's fighting a kid out of New Jersey who's 3-0, who I haven't seen enough of, or anything for that matter. But it's going to be an interesting fight. The kid's name is Zach Dubnoff out in New Jersey, and I think it's, Brent can be in there with anybody. I mean, he just gave Brandon Mullins, who's 5-0, a run for his money, and if he could have just stepped on the gas a little bit more, he could have possibly beat him.
Yeah, he waited a little too much that
Yeah.
fight. Seemed like there was some hesitancy to pull the trigger. But Brandon, is 5-0. I'm sure there's concerns about punching power and whatnot. But.
Correct. Then there's a young superstar in the making on our card. This kid's going to bring about 500 people with him from New Jersey. He made his pro debut at age 17, and they featured him on ESPN instantly. He made the highlight reel. Vito Mielnicki. His father's a promoter. He's been around, and this kid's been to a number of different national tournaments, and he's still a baby, but he's already. And then they showed highlights of him on Showtime as well, on Showbox 2 weeks ago. So the kid's really coming along, and I think he has a bright future. He reminds me of a younger version of Joey Spencer, that they're really getting behind to market and put him in the fights and move him on a fast track. And there's no need. There's no need for a fast track with the kid because he's only 17 years old.
Right.
But I can see them putting him in that position where he's going to end up being a superstar, under the PBC banner.
Yeah.
Because he signed with PBC.
Yeah. So I think we've covered this. We'll take questions if you have them. But one of the things I wanted to do tonight was, after talking about our own events coming up, just to give a shout out and talk about some other things in the boxing world that are coming up locally, but then just on the kind of national, international landscape as well. So the next big fight in boxing is this weekend, Triple G versus Sergey Derevchenko. I think most people think Triple G will win this fight, but I thought that Derevchenko was going to be a real beast in the division. The first couple of times I saw him, Danny Jacobs, want to beat him pretty convincingly. So it's hard to think that he's going to.
But also keep in mind, Danny Jacobs beat him, but him and Danny Jacobs were sparring partners for years. They came up into the same gym. So sometimes when you know somebody so well, from sparring with them, it's a little easier to make those adjustments and beat them. So Triple G doesn't know him like that. So I'm anxious to see what that's like as well.
Is something that people are talking about a lot right now, and I think it was the cover story in Ring Magazine for the last one, is Triple G Canelo 3 something that you really want to see right now, or could you do without it?
I could do without it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm excited about Triple G, not Triple G. I'm excited about Canelo and Kovalev.
November 2nd. Who do you think's going to win?
Canelo.
Yeah, I think Canelo will stop him.
For the body shot, But, it's a live fight. It really is. Early. Because Kovalev has that equalizer in that right hand that can change everything.
Right.
And so that's going to be a very interesting fight. But, we want to continue coming back here. We want to continue doing this live podcast weekly. And we're really excited and thankful for those of you who joined in. Please, if there's any questions that you have, ask us now because you won't see us for another week. So, so ask us now. But look, get your tickets for October 26th in Reading, Pennsylvania for one of the biggest fights ever here in Reading, PA. Showtime coming back to Reading for the first time since 2002 when they brought Six Heads Lewis to fight Mayorga. Now, how many people, you remember Mayorga, right?
I remember Six Heads Lewis.
Yeah.
Because my old training partner, Larry Marks, fought him in his first title defense.
Yeah, that's right. And Mayorga, who after the fight, right here at the Santander Arena, which was named the Sovereign Center at the time, smoked a cigarette and drank a beer right in the center of the ring. So it just, it put the world on notice who he was, that he was cocky, that he was that, he didn't care who he fought, and he was going to give him trouble. And then he goes and beats Vernon Forrest. So he made a name for himself off that Six-Heads Lewis fight. So hey, look, and talking about Reading, Reading has such a huge history for boxing. Uh, if anybody can figure out a fighter that fought here in Reading that they made a movie about, you will win 2 free tickets to the fight here in Reading. So I'm looking for some answers. Andrew, I don't know if you know, but I know exactly who it is, if anybody knows who
I'm just
it
thinking
is.
of boxers who they made movies.
That's right.
Is it a heavyweight?
No, but now I can't give away too much. Okay? It's a fighter right here in Reading. He's not from Reading, but he fought in Reading years ago at 10th and Penn. Okay? And I'll give you another hint. I don't want to wait too long here. I'm waiting to see if somebody answers this here. But the boxer that fought here was also in jail. Okay? So I want to see if you...
I know who you're talking about.
Do you know who it is? Now we're on a 30-second delay here, I believe, so I have to wait a few minutes to see if somebody responds, But it's going to be, if they can figure out who it is, it's going to be pretty neat, But, Reading has a huge history for boxing, man. I mean, fighters fought here. Joe Frazier fought here. Look it up. You can see him. 10th and Penn. Right at 10th and Penn Street, they used to do boxing events there. I don't know if it was a big arena or what it was at the time, but they used to do shows here. Then they had the PAL, Police Athletic League. So Reading was huge for boxing. I mean, for many, many years, and then it sort of fell off. But we've always had one of those fighters that was a contender, or we also had a fighter who became a world champion. 2 fighters that became world champions from Reading, Pennsylvania. So that's going to be another quiz. Just waiting to see if anybody can pick up on this, Hey, are we on the King's Boxing page or on Marshall Kaufman's page? Good. That's what I was wondering. Okay. Waiting on some answers here. Does anybody know? We're still running about 30 seconds behind. You didn't get that yet, did you? Did you get it? Did somebody answer yet?
Frank the Animal Fletcher?
Nope.
That was Johnny.
Oh, Johnny Yorgi, yeah. Nope, not Frank the Animal. Same weight class, but not Frank the Animal. Come on, you gotta do better than this. He was in a movie. Frank the Animal also wasn't in a movie. Probably could have made a movie about him because I think he ended up going to jail for murder or something. So you can win 2. You can win 2 free tickets. Come on, Johnny Yorgi. If you know it, you gotta get it. Come on. Who is it? They did a movie on him. He went to prison.
Charles Whitman?
Charles Whitner. Who said that? He is old school. I don't see that post yet. I don't know why. No.
Somebody just actually inboxed me that. Mike Boss, man?
Nope. Why is Yorgi the only one commenting on this? There has to be someone else that knows. Come on.
Somebody's watching my line of this inboxing me.
Did you share this on yours too? Yeah. I tried to share it on mine. I didn't know how to do it here.
Chuck Whitner?
Nope, not Chuck Wepner.
Nope.
I'm gonna allow Andrew to figure out who it was, but Andrew don't get the 2 free tickets. Who was it?
I think I'm wrong. I was going to say Hopkins. But then when you said 10th and Penn, that
10th and
wouldn't
Penn.
that wouldn't work.
Hurricane Carter.
Hurricane Carter.
Hurricane Carter fought here in Reading, Pennsylvania at 10th and Penn, and they made a movie about him, and so it was pretty neat. Who was the 2, not 1, but 2 world champions from Reading, Pennsylvania that fought out of Reading, went on to win world championships?
I think I know that.
Come on, we need some
Everybody
answers.
should get at least one.
Somebody should know something, come on. Johnny, it was Hurricane Carter, you missed it, you should have said that. We need something else here. Who else we got? Kerm is one of them, you're right. Kerm is one, but there's two. You gotta think of another one. Fall at middleweight.
Sims.
Who?
Johnny put Sims.
No, no. No, fall at middleweight. Kerm Cintron was one of them, Jose. But there was another one, that 160 pounds. You know? And I'll even tell you who he beat. He beat Michael Nunn for the middleweight championship of the world. Later on, went on and died in 2000, died from
So
colon cancer.
what do I get if I get it?
You don't get anything.
What about
You get a pat on the back.
what about CEO?
CEO? What's CEO?
CEO of Kings.
Oh, what do you get?
This is name,
Oh,
title
you get that
change.
title? Okay.
Yeah. So Mark Abrams, you know.
So Mark, so Mark Abrams
knows-
mentioned your name
yeah,
a little
that's
bit more, right?
That's right. Steve Little.
Steve Little, that's right. Steve Little won the world title, and then later on Kermit went and won it. You know, and so Reading has a huge history.
Well, and Travis came. I mean, Travis was a world-class fighter as
Correct,
well, and so
yeah.
was Frankie
You know,
D'Alba.
but,
But was
you know-
Frankie technically a Reading guy or more Allentown?
No, Reading.
Right.
He started in Reading, yeah. But you know, Reading has a huge history of boxing, and so I'm excited to bring that to bring that history back to Reading with us talking about podcasts and on our podcast and just to talk about boxing and keeping boxing alive. But the fact that we have fighters who's fought on HBO, Showtime, you know, fought for world championships, won world championships right here from Reading. Then there's Mr. KO, Julian Larillo, you know, who's originally from Harrisburg, that lived and trained out of Reading though, and made his mark, you know, in boxing. You know, so boxing has a very rich history. Then, you know, Muhammad Ali spent a lot of time in Reading, Pennsylvania. Larry Holmes is just right up the road in Easton. So there's a lot of talent here. You know, people always talk about that, you know, all the talents in Philadelphia or LA or Vegas. There's a lot of talent that came right out of Reading here. And so, you know, I want to be able to bring that back to Reading. I want the people in Reading to come out and support what we're doing here in Reading. And, you know, if you don't come out to this October 26th card at the Santander Arena, you're missing something big.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you really are. I mean, I think it's going to be a great night of fights, great atmosphere, and just, you know, it's going to be a night to remember, as that Robert Easter fight was. That was a night to remember. When anybody who was in the crowd remembers that night, you know, you just can't remember. It's not like you're leaving there, you know, and you forget about that, you know, the very next day or even a year later. You remember that night. I remember that night like it was yesterday, you know. And just the atmosphere was phenomenal, and I loved it, you know. I loved how the people of Ohio got behind their fighter. And I'm looking for the same atmosphere, can even better come October 26th.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully they come out to support Alicia as well.
That's right, that's right. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a real good night. So, hey, look, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back on next week. We'll be back on next Wednesday at same time, same channel, and we won't be late this time. You know, we'll have the time.
Don't promise that.
We'll have it together. No, we got a good podcast going now. You know, we have it great, and I'm excited about it, and we'll be ready to go. Tune in next week. Thanks for joining us again. Anything to add to that, Andrew, before we close out here?
No, looking forward to coming back next week.
All right, thank you. Thanks to Nick and Lou for helping us out here and making this a possibility. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.